The streets of Medellin were her classroom. Poverty, violence, and desperation were her teachers. Griselda Blanco, a child of the slums, learned to survive. She learned to hustle. She learned that power spoke louder than words. Even as a young girl, Griselda possessed a chilling ambition. She craved not just survival, but dominance. Her early crimes were petty pickpocketing, small-time scams. But they were stepping stones. Each act honed her ruthlessness, her disregard for the law, her ability to manipulate and exploit. By her teens, she had graduated to more serious offenses: passport forgery, smuggling. Griselda Blanco, the girl from the slums, was on the cusp of becoming the godmother of cocaine. The 1970s saw the rise of the Medellin cartel. Pablo Escobar, the Ochoa brothers, Carlos later, these were the players in a deadly game. And Griselda Blanco, with her sharp mind and ruthless ambition, quickly became a major player. She saw the potential of cocaine, the insatiable demand in the United States. She knew that controlling the supply chain meant controlling the game. Griselda wasn't content with just being a cog in the machine. She wanted her own empire, so she forged alliances, betrayed rivals, and eliminated competition. Her ruthlessness became legendary. She was nicknamed La Madrina, the Godmother, a title earned through blood and cocaine. She pioneered new smuggling routes, finding innovative ways to move her product. She amassed a fortune, building a narcotics empire that stretched from the slums of Medellin to the streets of Miami. Griselda Blanco was a master of disguise. She understood the importance of blending in, of appearing innocuous. She used her own clothing factories as fronts, transforming ordinary garments into vessels for cocaine. She even created a line of maternity wear, specially designed undergarments with hidden pockets for smuggling. Her ingenuity knew no bounds. She trained her mules, young women, often unsuspecting tourists, to carry cocaine across borders. She hid drugs in hollowed-out furniture, religious statues, even shipments of live animals. But her innovation was matched by her brutality. Anyone who crossed her informants, rivals, even those who simply displeased her faced swift and brutal retribution. Her preferred method of execution was the motorcycle drive-by shooting, a technique that became her deadly signature. The streets of Miami became her battleground, stained with the blood of her enemies. Griselda's reign of terror instilled fear, not just in her enemies but in the general population. As her empire grew, so did Griselda's wealth. She amassed a fortune estimated to be in the billions, but hiding such vast sums of money presented a unique challenge. Griselda, ever resourceful, turned to money laundering, becoming a pioneer in the field. She invested in legitimate businesses, restaurants, nightclubs, real estate, using them to clean her dirty money. She funneled cash through offshore accounts, shell corporations, and complex financial transactions. Griselda understood that money was power, and she used her ill-gotten gains to further solidify her control. Her lavish lifestyle became legendary. She owned luxurious mansions, a stable of racehorses, and a collection of exotic animals. She threw extravagant parties, surrounded by celebrities, politicians, and underworld figures. But beneath the veneer of wealth and glamour, Griselda remained a ruthless criminal. Her hands stained with the blood of her victims. The more money Griselda made, the more violent the drug war became. Miami in the 1980s was a city transformed. The influx of cocaine money brought with it a wave of violence, corruption, and social decay. The streets were no longer safe. Shootouts erupted in broad daylight. Innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. The police were overwhelmed, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. The criminal justice system struggled to keep pace with the escalating violence. Griselda, with her network of informants and corrupt officials, seemed untouchable. She operated with impunity, her empire built on a foundation of fear and intimidation. The cocaine epidemic ravaged communities. Addiction soared. Families were torn apart. The social fabric of the city was fraying at the seams. Griselda Blanco, the ruthless queen of cocaine, had left an indelible mark on Miami. As Griselda's empire grew, so did the body count. The violence, once contained within the underworld, now spilled onto the streets, terrifying the city and capturing national attention. The media dubbed Miami the cocaine capital of the United States. Law enforcement agencies, under intense pressure to stem the tide of violence and drug trafficking, turned their attention to Griselda Blanco. She was no longer just another drug dealer, she was public enemy number one. The DEA, the FBI, and local police departments formed a task force dedicated to bringing her down. Griselda, always one step ahead, relied on her network of informants and corrupt officials. She had judges and police officers on her payroll, ensuring her protection and thwarting investigations. But the walls were closing in. Her enemies, sensing weakness, were circling, eager to claim her empire. The net was tightening. The authorities were closing in, determined to bring the godmother of cocaine to justice. By the mid-1980s, Griselda Blanco was a hunted woman. The DEA, relentless in their pursuit, had infiltrated her inner circle. Informants, fearing for their lives, were turning state's evidence. The empire she had built on blood and cocaine was crumbling. In 1985, Griselda was finally apprehended in California. Her arrest, a result of a years-long investigation and a stroke of luck, sent shockwaves through the underworld. The godmother, once considered untouchable, was now in the clutches of the law. She was extradited to Florida, where she faced a slew of charges: drug trafficking, money laundering, and multiple counts of murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Witnesses, many of them former associates, testified to her brutality and her role in countless crimes. Despite the mountain of evidence, Griselda managed to avoid a life sentence. She was eventually convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison, a lenient sentence considering the gravity of her crimes. Griselda Blanco's influence on the drug trade extended far beyond her own empire. Her innovative smuggling techniques, her ruthless business practices, and her audacious approach to money laundering became a blueprint for a new generation of criminals. She had shown the world that a woman, even in the male-dominated world of drug trafficking, could rise to the top. Her story, though steeped in blood and violence, became a perverse inspiration for aspiring criminals, particularly in her native Colombia. The Colombian drug trade, following Griselda's model, became more organized, more sophisticated, and even more violent. The cartels that emerged in her wake, Cali, Norte del Valle, adopted her tactics, using violence and intimidation to maintain control and expand their empires. Griselda Blanco's legacy is a complex one. She was a criminal mastermind, a ruthless killer, and a product of her environment. Griselda Blanco's reign of terror coincided with the escalation of the war on drugs. The United States, under President Ronald Reagan, poured billions of dollars into law enforcement, interdiction efforts, and military aid to Colombia. The goal was to eradicate the supply of cocaine, to dismantle the cartels, and to stem the tide of addiction ravaging American communities. But the war on drugs, much like the Hydra of Greek mythology, proved to be a many-headed beast. For every cartel leader captured or killed, another emerged to take their place. The violence continued, fueled by the insatiable demand for cocaine and the vast profits it generated. The social costs of the drug war, mass incarceration, militarized policing, and the erosion of civil liberties continued to be felt today. Griselda Blanco's story is a reminder of the unintended consequences of prohibition. The war on drugs, despite its noble intentions, has largely failed to achieve its objectives. Griselda Blanco's life is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the seductive allure and destructive power of greed. She was a product of her environment, a woman who rose from poverty to become one of the most powerful criminals in the world. Her story is a testament to the human capacity for both good and evil. She was capable of great love for her children, for her lovers, but also of unspeakable cruelty. She was a complex and contradictory figure, a woman who defied easy categorization. Griselda's legacy serves as a warning, a reminder that the pursuit of wealth and power, unchecked by morality or compassion, can have devastating consequences. Her story is a dark chapter in the history of the drug trade, a reminder of the human cost of this illicit and deadly business. Griselda Blanco's life, though extraordinary in its scope and brutality, reflects a universal truth. The choices we make, particularly those driven by greed and ambition, have lasting consequences. Despite her crimes, Griselda Blanco remains a figure of fascination. Her story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood movie. Her life, though steeped in violence and tragedy, continues to captivate and intrigue. Perhaps it is her audacity, her willingness to break the rules and defy expectations that draws us to her. Or maybe it is the sheer improbability of her story, a poor girl from the slums who became one of the most powerful criminals in the world. Whatever the reason, Griselda Blanco's legend endures. She remains a symbol of a bygone era, a time when cocaine flowed freely, and the streets of Miami ran red with blood. Her story, though disturbing, is a reminder of the enduring allure of power, wealth, and the dark side of the American dream. Griselda Blanco's story, though tragic, is a reminder that truth is often stranger than fiction. Her life, though cut short by violence, continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure.